Well, welcome. We are so excited to welcome everyone to our summer webinar series on healthcare transition. My name is Diana Rovetti. I work at the Nevada Center for Excellence in Disabilities up at the University of Nevada, Reno. We're in the College of Education and Human Development. And I'm a parent. I have a son who has Down syndrome. This is my passion, to educate people on things that will make their life better and easier and to help our kids become more independent adults. So this series is being brought to us by the Nevada Department of Public and Behavioral Health under Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs, and we are trying to educate people on healthcare transition. So as all of you who are parents know, one of our ultimate goals, as we're raising our kids, is for them to become independent, and that's also very important in the healthcare realm. There's medications to take, there's medications to refill, doctor's appointments to make, choosing a doctor, forms to fill out, and it really helps if patients and our kids can have an organized transition process. We want them to gain independence in all areas of life, but it's very important also in their healthcare, and to have an organized process to transfer to an adult physician is a really important process. So tonight, as part of healthcare transition and transition in general, we're going to be learning about ABLE accounts from Erik Jimenez from the Nevada State Treasurer's Office. And he's been very instrumental in our state in getting the law passed. It was passed in Congress, US Congress in 2014, and the ABLE Act was passed in Nevada due to some great grassroots advocacy and some leadership by Erik and other individuals in our great state. And so now is the time that we need to try to get the word out to everybody so that they can take advantage of this. And Erik's going to give us all the rules and let us know how we're going to be able to do this. And so I would like to ask everybody just to introduce themselves, and so that Erik and I can see who's here, and everybody else, if you're so inclined, we'd love to see who's joining us today. And if you're a parent or a provider, Erik is going to be giving his presentation, and then we're going to be having some time for you guys to ask questions. Anyway, great to have everybody here. Thank you for joining us on this nice summer evening. And I'm going to turn the time over to Erik.
Thank you, Diana, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a wonderful Wednesday evening. My name is Erik Jimenez. I'm a chief deputy in the state treasurer's office, and I'm actually the highest ranking person in Nevada government with a disability. So it's something that I take very near and dear to my heart, and this program and helping families with kids with disabilities and individuals with disabilities, I think, is something we should be doing a better job of as a state, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that these kids and families are taken care of. So that's me. This is my friend Jack. He runs a small business. You may see him up and about in the Reno Sparks area. He runs a popcorn company. Jack, he has an ABLE account, and we're very excited about that. And the reason he has an ABLE account is because they are incredible tools for helping people with disabilities save without losing access to their means-tested benefits. Broadly, we know this, I think you all know this, but people with disabilities are probably the largest, if not the second largest minority group in America. They're twice as likely to be unemployed. They're twice as likely to be living in poverty. And then there are income and asset thresholds but before someone loses access to means-tested benefits like Social Security, Medicaid, food stamps, TANF, and housing assistance. And those arbitrary asset and resource caps often mean that this population of folks has to live their lives in poverty through no fault of their own. ABLE accounts are a very useful tool as they create pathways out of poverty for this population and allow them to save and earn money, unlike anything we've seen before. When I talk to groups like this and when I talk to families, I often compare the ABLE Act to probably the most transformative policy for people with disabilities since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, because it has unleashed a power of financial independence that this population has never seen before, in that they can save, spend their money, plan for the future, and also it empowers them to use these funds in the way that either the person with the disability, if they can, or if there's a guardianship or a rep payee and things like that, can best see fit to allow them to live their lives. One differentiation we see with ABLE accounts and things like special needs trusts, some of you may be familiar with, are often vehicles where families can put some money aside for a loved one, but they're really thinking about like large assets, right? Like what happens to my child when I am no longer there? How do I make sure they're taken care of? ABLE accounts are not special needs trusts. They're meant to be smaller sized, so not hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're meant to be used pretty regularly and flexibly, like a checking account. And the interesting piece, which differentiates these accounts from things like special needs trusts, is that the account owner, if it is possible, if the person is financially aware and cognizant and able to make those decisions, the account owner is the person with a disability, so they can make those choices. Unless for some reason there's a reason and a court has stepped in and said they cannot. That makes some people uncomfortable. For me, I tend to go the other direction, and I think it is important that we allow people with disabilities to spend and earn their money. And sometimes they may fail, and that is okay. But as long as we have some guardrails and safety nets around them, that's good. The ABLE Act was passed in 2014 and was codified in Nevada in 2015. So they are fairly new. And when I talk to a lot of groups, most people do not know about them. In the early stages of the process, before I got to state government, the program was bifurcated between the Aging and Disability Services Division for outreach and marketing, and then administration of the accounts in the Treasurer's Office. With that delineation of responsibilities, nobody really did anything with it. And this was a program that sat on a shelf unused. When I came into the Treasurer's Office shortly after the 2018 election, I think there were something like 90 accounts, and you'll see that we have worked to grow those significantly. I worked on a bill. The picture you saw in the beginning was the passage of Assembly Bill 130 from 2019, which moved the program entirely into the Treasurer's Office. This program is run by me. I am one person. I am from the state general fund, so I do everything I can for this program, and I have other responsibilities, but we do the best that we can, protecting and preserving Nevada's tax dollars at the same time. Under statute, and I do this because there's a lot of myths about ABLE accounts, so I like to quote the statutes here, but money in an ABLE account must not be used to calculate the personal assets of a beneficiary or the person with a disability for any disability, medical, or other health benefits administered by this state, as well as federal Social Security benefits. Additionally, the money in an ABLE account cannot be used to calculate the personal assets for federal student loans and other student aid programs administered by the state as well. These accounts are tax advantaged savings accounts. So the money, when you put money into an ABLE account, obviously you're paying taxes on that money before it goes in. But the idea is once it's in the ABLE account, growth on those assets is tax-free as long as you use it for qualified disability expenses. Much like if you have another child or have one for your other children, a 529 college savings account. These are very similar. They're in the same section of the tax code. If you use those accounts for qualified educational expenses that they can grow tax-free, which is the advantage of them. Individuals with disabilities can open these accounts for themselves, or an authorized individual, and we could talk about what that is, can open an account on their behalf. If a child's under the age of 18, a parent or guardian can open the accounts, and we encourage families who have children who are not yet 18 to open these, because I think they have probably the most benefit for them. And then who can sign up for them? There's kind of a two-pronged test. You have to have had a significant impairment from a disability that occurred before the age of 26. That does not mean that the disability has to be diagnosed before the age of 26, but it had to have occurred. So we're talking about significant disabilities, Down syndrome, severe cerebral palsy, cognitive disabilities, severe autism. We are expanding things into the mental health diagnoses, but broadly, if it is a severe impairment, you are able to open an ABLE account. If you are receiving SSI or SSDI, you're automatically eligible. If you're not receiving either of those programs, you still may be eligible if you're willing to attest when you're signing up through the ABLE account portal that we have online, that your child or you do have a qualifying disability. And then these programs are managed by states, similar to college savings programs. And you can only have one account per person, but if you have one in another state, you can move to the Nevada program or any other one. If we know that there's about 42,000 people in the state currently receiving Social Security disability benefits, but we believe the population of folks who are eligible for these accounts is much higher, so over 50,000. And just to show the work that we've done in this office, thanks to the leadership of Treasurer Conine and Governor Sisolak, we've been able to grow this program from about 90 accounts in 2018 to over 2,000, with assets of about $10.5 million as of last fiscal year. And as of just a couple weeks ago, we increased that to over 3,000 accounts. So we're continuing to talk to families about this program and how they can benefit. So when let's say I put money in an ABLE account, one of the questions I often get is, what can I use the money on? And the architects of the federal legislation were very, very concerned if we made the eligible uses too restrictive, that nobody would use them and they wouldn't have the intended benefit. And you'll see here on this list, and if there's visually impaired folks, I'll read the list. But these accounts can be used for a wide array of expenses, ranging from education, health and wellness, housing, transportation, legal and professional fees, any sort of employment training or support that someone might need, assistive technology. I've had families purchase or get training for serviced animals through ABLE accounts, as well as any sort of oversight and monitoring and any funeral expenses as well. This list is meant to be intentionally broad and I think cover most expenses that we would see for an individual or even ourselves, right? When we buy food or toothpaste or healthcare or anything like that, it could fall within that list. I often get asked, well, could I take a trip with money in an ABLE account? Could I go to Disneyland? And I think if you can make a reasonable argument and are comfortable making that argument that that trip will improve your health and wellness, you can make that argument and use it as a qualified.
Regarding that slide, and that is, what do you mean by oversight and monitoring?
So if for some reason you needed to hire an accountant to monitor expenses or keep track of expenses, or if there was some sort of situation where a person with a disability needed additional oversight or a court ordered it, fees could be paid through the ABLE account as a disability expense. That's pulled from federal law and it doesn't really define it. So I'm not gonna, try to interpret federal law too much for you all, but
Someone said like a case manager. Would it be like something like for a case manager, you could pay for a case manager?
Yeah, it could be. If for some reason your county social service agency wasn't providing those services already, or a supported decision-making model or something like that. Real quick, we just have a couple more slides and then I'm happy to take any questions because there's going to be a lot of them. And we're happy to take all and any questions. When you withdraw money from ABLE accounts, they can grow and be withdrawn tax-free, provided that we're using qualified disability related expenses. If you're not meeting the threshold with the list from the previous slide, just understand that you may have to pay taxes on those dollars since they're not being used for their intended purpose. And then balances under $100,000 are excluded from the SSI up to $16,000 a year. This was 15 and it was recently increased to 16. May be contributed into an ABLE account if the individual with a disability is not working. If the person with a disability is working, thanks to something called the Able to Work Act, they can contribute an additional $12,060 per year into the ABLE account. So if you're not working, $16,000 a year. If you are working, a little over $28,000 a year, which I think is super helpful when we have people working in sheltered workshops or sub-minimum wage jobs and they're transitioning out to minimum wage employment or above and beyond. This is a nice cushion that allows someone to earn up to $28,000 if they're working without threatening access to their health benefits and their monthly social security checks and things like that. So once we get above that threshold, we have to have a conversation of, does that individual really need these federal benefits? And if for some reason they're making more than that, great, let's get them more independent and make sure those benefits are there for other people. If you have an existing 529 plan for a college savings plan for either that child or another child, you can transfer that. I believe it's once a year in the amount of about $16,000 a year. This is just something to know if you ever look at our ABLE plan in Nevada, and if you go to either the nevadatreasurer.gov or savewithable.com, you will see that a number of states are listed. We participate in an alliance of 18 states, which account for about half of the ABLE accounts nationally. That's important because this keeps fees as low as we can make them. As I mentioned earlier, we run this program with $0 from your state general fund. So there are fees for this program and we will talk about them, but this is the way we ensure that those fees are as low as humanly possible for these accounts. And that's important. ABLE accounts are unique from other types of vehicles that have been available for people with disabilities, because you do have the option, and we can talk about options and whether you want to or not. And there's an option if you do not want to do this, to potentially invest these dollars and have them grow from conservative to aggressive and moderate. That could allow, let's say, if you start saving through an ABLE account with a child with a disability when they're 6, and maybe you would like those assets to grow over time, you can match that investment strategy for whatever meets your needs. Additionally, we have a FDIC insured option that allows you to get a debit card for the ABLE account, which I strongly recommend to folks. One, because the fees are lower, and then two, you don't have to navigate the market performance or the investment options, or what if we're going into an economic downturn, or what is the stock market doing tomorrow. I just want to have my assets. I want to make sure they're FDIC insured, and I would like a debit card to flexibly use those dollars to make expenses. There's an option to check that in the box, which makes it a lot more easy for families. Broadly, as I mentioned, there are fees for this program. There's a $25 minimum contribution required to open an ABLE account. We are working to try to get rid of that minimum contribution, but that is going to take time. Our efforts in the legislature this year to do that. And then maintenance fees today range from about $11.25 a quarter if you choose electronic statements, to about $15 a quarter if you do not choose paper statements. I will note that these fees are going down in October. They will be about $8 a quarter for those maintenance fees. And I recognize that a lot of folks with disabilities are concerned about this, and they don't, sometimes have the money to save, and they're worried about fees, and that's something that worries us too. And so we're always trying to get those fees lower. But what I will say is, even though these accounts have fees in them, they are less than your standard checking and savings accounts. And they are also, at the same time, you're preserving your Medicaid and Social Security benefits while you're saving. So you're earning income and assets above what you would normally be able to. So we try to make the fees as reasonable as possible, but you are getting the benefit of keeping your, and we can talk about the fees if people have questions. This is something I like to highlight because it's something we've just done. On October 25th of last year, Governor Sisolak and Treasurer Conine and myself, we launched a first in the nation program to help children with disabilities recover stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the first program of its kind in the country. It is the largest aid program for kids with disabilities like this ever in the history of the country. And we're providing $12 million to provide $5,000 grants to children's when they set up an ABLE account. We've closed applications for that, but I'm sure there's people on the call who participated in this program or are waiting to receive funds for this program. It has been massively successful, and we've gotten about $10 million out the door so far. $2 million of this funding, it's very exciting that we're reserving for children in the foster care system who have disabilities, to make sure that when they age out of the foster care system, they can have at least a $5,000 savings bump to help them when they age out. And again, this remains the largest aid program designed to help children with disabilities done by any state after the COVID-19 pandemic, and still the largest in the entire country. This is me. This is my email. This is my cell phone. I may not always answer my cell phone, but I do try to answer my emails. I get a lot of them. And with that, I would be happy to, I'm sure there's questions, but I would be happy to answer.
Are there ABLE accounts present in all 59 states or just the 18?
There are about 42 or 43 states that have their own ABLE account programs. I am mystified why some states don't have their own programs. They vary from state to state. In Nevada, we don't have a state income tax. So some programs, if you look at other state programs, you'll see that they have an income tax deduction for a state income tax. We don't have one. So naturally, our plan does not have one. I do think there is a benefit to signing up in the state that you live in, assuming that you agree with the fee structure and the rules and restrictions on them, because we have local presence on the ground and I have access. And when you have a question or a concern, I can work through that and work with our program staff pretty rapidly.
Okay, Eric, if you have regular Social Security, does that disqualify you from getting an account?
No.
Okay, great to know. Are the fees on all types of accounts or specific to the investment accounts?
Yeah, this gets a little tricky, and it's often I'm frustrated they structured it this way, but there's not much I can do about it. If you get the FDIC insured option, which gives you the debit card, which I strongly recommend, you only have to pay the quarterly fees. So by around October, that'll be about $8 a quarter, or about $32 a year later this year. If you do try to want to participate in the investment options, there are management fees for that, because your money is being actively invested, just like it would be if you had an investment account. Those range from what we call basis points, or tenths of hundreds of a percent. So those range from 0.34% to 0.38%. 0.34 would be the conservative option, and 0.38 would be the aggressive option. But if you choose not to do that and want the debit card option, you're not paying those fees. that's just something you have to consider for your family and what works best for your situation.
So if they miss the application period of the tots, is there going to be applications open again? And if so, when?
So that's a complicated question. Right now, we have no intention to open the program again, just because we've exhausted the available funding we have with the applications. Working with the legislature and the governor's office to contemplate additional funding. We do have a form on our website, which I'm happy to send around as well when we send these slides around, which gets you on a waiting list if for some reason funds do become available. So it takes 3 seconds to fill out. So I would highly suggest you fill that out if you did miss out and would like, if for some reason funds become available, because we're going to go to that list first.
Absolutely. So who do you go through to open one of these ABLE accounts, Erik?
Yeah, so there are 2 ways. You can either go to nevadatreasurer.gov, and it's right on our website. You can click the box and it'll bring it to you, or you can go to savewithable.com and select Nevada, and that will bring you right to the account. You can do it online, you could do it by paper, but I would encourage online, and it's actually a pretty easy process. And if you have questions during that process, let me know and I can walk you through it. We also have, which I will send with the PowerPoint and the form link, we have an ABLE enrollment guide, which is super helpful for as you're kind of navigating through the process. So I can make sure to do that as well.
So no going down to your bank here and getting an ABLE?
No, so they're structured differently. I am working in the long term to try to get more local bank access here, but the way that these accounts are set up, they are not standard checking accounts. They operate like them, but there's a contracted bank that is Fifth Third Bank, but we're working to try to get some local banks. But you cannot go down to your local credit union or Wells Fargo or Bank of America and set these up. You have to go through your state government to do that.
All right. So can a social worker set up an ABLE account for a person with a disability? Is it just limited to families or guardians?
So it depends. And that sometimes we address this on a case-by-case basis. So it would depend on the situation. For children in the foster care system, county social service workers have to be the ones to set up the ABLE account with them. For other folks, it depends on if the person has a guardianship over the person in the estate or just the estate, or if they have a Social Security rep payee. There are options to do that. It's just dependent on the situation. So if that applies to you, when you're going through the ABLE account process, it says, who are you? Who are you setting the account up for? That would be the account owner. And then if you are a caseworker that is authorized to set up the account, you can click I'm an authorized individual to do that. And then we will do some checking to make sure you are in fact an authorized individual to open that account, mainly to prevent abuse and fraud. But there are mechanisms to do that, and we deal with that all the time.
Okay, great. So with the debit card option, is there a way to limit daily / per transaction amounts, or is there a withdrawal limit built into the debit card option already?
I do not believe there is a withdrawal limit. There might be, but I'd have to look at that in our program documents. If what you're asking is, can you put controls on it to say, let's say your child has a disability and you want to put some controls on that? I don't think so. But then there might be other mechanisms for you if maybe you're the one accessing those funds, or maybe you can transfer them into another account or things like that. So there are other ways that you could get around
That's
that.
a great idea. So do you have to get the expenditures approved before using the debit card, or is it a matter of justifying the expenditures at the close of the year? In general,
Yeah,
how are
so
the expenditures tracked and approved?
So the state of Nevada is never going to ask you for receipts or audit you or anything like that. If for some reason the IRS wants to see what the transactions were, you would have to justify that if you got audited. I'm unaware of anybody that has been audited, but something to consider. This is why I recommend the debit card option to folks. I know people with disabilities and their families keep a lot of receipts. They're used to keeping a lot of receipts. But if you want something where you could track account statements and balances and expenditures, sometimes the debit card option is easiest to do that. And then you can kind of go back and track statements through that. But we're not asking you to submit receipts at the end of the year. One thing that is beneficial, and I should have said this at the beginning, this is a new program, relatively, right? Under 10 years old. Sometimes your local, the customer service representative at the, when you're filing your taxes or at your Social Security office may not fully know about ABLE accounts, but chances are their boss does. So my recommendation to folks is when you set the ABLE account up, just if you're receiving SSI or SSDI, let your local Social Security office know. Just say, hey, I established an ABLE account, just in case there's a little bit of lag. They don't unintentionally say that you're over the asset limit. So this is a good program to be communicative with the other programs that you're already receiving assistance from, just to make sure that they know what's going on as well.
All right, can you talk about Nevada being a clawback state and explain that in more detail?
Yeah, so our law is ambiguous. The Department of Healthcare Financing and Policy tried to claw back some funds, and then we showed them the regulations were ambiguous. So at this point, Medicaid is not actively pursuing funds when a person dies from an ABLE account. Some states have made it so that if you die, your funds in an ABLE account cannot be pursued by the relevant Medicaid agency. But this is a very common practice. If you have a special needs trust, if you have other financial vehicles, Medicaid recovery is very common. We are contemplating whether or not a legislative vehicle needs to happen before the next legislative session to make it clear that you cannot claw back these funds. And if members of the community come to us and say that that's important to them, we're happy to pursue that. But right now, it's kind of a very ambiguous state.
Do you think that they would let people receiving Medicaid know if they decided to start doing that?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to Medicaid.
Okay. Do you know if we can change and apply for a debit card after we already set up our ABLE account without a debit card?
Yes, you can. We have a customer service line that's on that. Somebody shared it in the chat, the Save with ABLE website. You can change it, I think, about once or twice a year. You can't just change it every month, but if you call them, they can help you do that process and change the option.
All right, great. So my sister has a developmental disability. But she's 65. Is this a program that something that would work for her?
Yeah, it could. And for older individuals, what I like to say this is helpful for if you find yourself in a position where you're getting SSI or SSDI checks, and if at the end of every month or at the end of some months you find yourself in a situation where we're like, we have to spend down, we need to spend, we have too much money in the account and we need to spend it down so we don't hit the resource limit or the asset limit, then yeah, you should definitely consider an ABLE account, because you will not have to spend down at the end of the month to avoid that. I see some people in their 40s who finally are now in the workplace where they're very excited to have an ABLE account because it means that they can keep their Medicaid and they can keep earning and saving. So it's really a personal decision. I spend a lot of my time with youth because I just think there's a lot of potential if we allow them to save and get them on a path towards saving so they don't end up in poverty. But for the elderly folks, these are totally reasonable vehicles as well. You just have to make your decision as to whether there's as much value there.
What's the age limit for the TOTS grant?
We put this was a legislative thing because it passed at the end of the legislative session. It was 18 years of age as of October 25th, 2021. So if for some reason you turned 18 after that window, we're still allowing it. But there was an initial age limit on 18.
If approved, what happens if you've exhausted the balance on your ABLE account? Tess, can you clarify that? You can.
Hi. Yeah, for example, because I have a friend who had the Able account, and I think she was given 5,000 grant on it. I'm not sure if it's what you call grant. And so she just wanted to know what if, for example, of course, the expenses that she uses it for her, kids. So what happens after she exhausted that amount? Thank you.
Yeah, so then she received one of our TOTS grants, which is fantastic. It means it's actually working. We're very excited about that. This was a one-time grant, so like I said before, we're not planning on giving new money out at this point in time. So nothing negative happens at that point. So if she has a zero balance in the ABLE account, if she's used all the funds, eventually she can either make the decision, maybe she thinks the account is useful down the line and continue contributing to that, or the account could just close for lack of activity. So no negative penalty there. Those dollars were meant to be used. So glad she used them, but there's no pressure to continue contributing. But if she wants to, she can.
And Sarah said, you said there was some expansion into the mental health realm. Can students with E/BD qualify for an ABLE account? Okay.
No, so the answer is yes, it depends. So if the condition is significant enough, or they're receiving SSI or SSDI, then yes, they would be able to. If it's a minor mental health diagnosis that doesn't severely impact function, then probably not. But I'm not the disability police, so if either the parent or the caseworker or whoever feels that it meets the threshold, then yeah, sign up for the ABLE account.
So just as an update question to your answer, if a student applies and receives SSI, then they would qualify for the ABLE account.
Automatically, yes. But if they're not receiving SSI, that doesn't necessarily disqualify them. It just, I think it does have more benefit for folks who are actively receiving Medicaid and or SSI or SSDI, because they do have, if they earn too much money or save too much money, there is a threat to those benefits. So it's good to prepare.
How does it work if we want to transfer savings from a Nevada prepaid tuition program to an ABLE account?
Well, so that is a qualified 529 plan. There's a form on that same website that someone shared through the chat, and we will share through the link, where you can submit that form to the to the Nevada ABLE Savings Plan. Say, hey, I have a 529 plan here. I would like to transfer that, and we will work with you both on the prepaid tuition side and on the ABLE side to transfer that. There are limits. It's the same as the yearly limit as well. So you can't transfer all the assets, but you could transfer them into the ABLE account.
All right. Teresa Grant said they also got a 1099-A form. And then, but her question is, can we use money for airline expenses for vacation?
I don't see why not.
Okay, and this was, Kamala has another question. It was in the March 2022 ABLE National Resource Center newsletter. The ABLE account must be properly titled in order to hold SSI and SSDI benefits saved by the RP. This is true whether the representative payee is a legal guardian or conservator, agent, or someone with power of attorney. The SSA beneficiary is the ABLE account owner, but the title must also show the payee is a financial agent with fiduciary interest in the funds.
Yeah, so my question is, they're saying that we have to title those the same way we have it titled in the bank account, but I've never heard that before. So I just need clarification. Are we supposed to title it like we have the bank account titled? Or what are they saying? I mean, that's not the full language. I didn't want to put it all in this chat box, but I sent it through email because.
Yeah, I have it. Let me look through it because this is a complicated one and I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So I will get back to you.
All right. Our son has the conservative option. It lost principal. In addition to the administrative fee, what option exists that has no chance to lose money?
That would be your FDIC insured debit card option. So with that section, when you go in the account, and there's a form where you can change your investment strategy. Again, if you choose the investment strategy, there is risk in the marketplace, right? So if you do not want to take those market risks, I would encourage you to go to that debit card option.
You could use it for housing. Does that mean you can get an apartment or buy a house with it?
Of course.
Okay. And can you have an ABLE account and an account in a commercial bank?
Yes. I see a lot of families that do, and you can transfer money into and out of each way. So that may work for you, whatever your situation is, but there's nothing prohibiting you from having an ABLE account, a typical savings account and a checking account, just be cognizant that the money that's not in the ABLE account could potentially count against your asset and resource limit if you are receiving benefits.
Okay, if you choose to do the investment option, does that mean you cannot have a debit card to the account?
That's correct. So the only debit card option is through the investment account. But if you do sign up for one of those, there are ways to get your money out. You can do that either through paper checks. You can order paper checks and then write checks if that's your thing. Or you can transfer funds into other accounts, just like you would, in between checking and savings accounts and things.
So for those that are working, is the $1,220 a month changed at all with the active ABLE account? And is that 1220 a hard number that cannot be exceeded? Thanks.
So you're referring to the number I had on the first slide, the how much you can make when you work? Yeah, so if you have the ABLE account, you can earn more than that 1220 that you would currently. So if you do not have the ABLE account, that's all you can earn a month without losing access to your Medicaid and Social Security benefits, largely Social Security. If you have the ABLE account, that then increases, right? As we talked about, you can save the initial 16,000 plus another 12,000 if you are working. So if you have someone that is an individual with disability, they are working and they're breaking that 1220 or want to get above that 1220, they should sign up for an ABLE account.
Okay, are there people who can individually counsel with families to help navigate through the options and think through specific needs and situations?
Yeah, we're happy to do it to the best of our ability in the treasurer's office if you have specific situations. However, sometimes, it depends on whether if you have an IEP team, those could be a useful option. If you're under a supported decision-making arrangement, the person or individuals under the supported decision-making arrangement could do that. And or if you have a existing rep pay or a caseworker or something like that, that could also be allowed.
What about a parent contribution? What's the limit for a parent?
Yeah, so there's no personal limit apart from the actual limit. So the $16,000 limit. So if you're a parent and you want to contribute $500 or $16,000, you can do that. Just know that there is an annual limit. So if you have like parents and grandparents and cousins contributing to the account, I've seen some kids that are doing like GoFundMe's and gifting, which is super cool. Like they're like raising money to go into their ABLE account. It would behoove you to just make sure you're keeping track of that annual limit. So
okay, so say the parent contributes the 16,000, but the person is working. Does the person who's working have to make the additional 12,000 and if we're going to contribute the additional 12,000?
Yeah, so if you want the additional 12,000, the person with the disability needs to be working, and that's the limit there. So it could be less than that, or
did they need to be making over the $12,000 to contribute it?
No, I mean they could be making $100 a week, right? And that you could contribute that.
And
It's
the
just
family could still contribute the 28,000.
No. So the family could contribute the 16, and if the individual was working, whatever they made up to 12,060 would be there. So that would, if they're working, you have a hard cap.
All right, so they have to actually make the money that they put into the account.
Yes.
Okay, and so that would be the extra 12,000. Okay, great. In your presentation slides, I believe the second or third slide, the last talking point said you could save $2,000 a year. I thought the maximum you could have was 2,000 per Social Security. Can you explain the 2,000 per year savings?
That was just the restrictions on existing Social Security programs. So when you have the ABLE, that's more just to show that if you have the ABLE account, you can save significantly more than if you did not have the ABLE account.
Okay, so that's the most money you can have in the bank without an ABLE account.
Yeah.
That was the slide, yeah. Okay, is 1220 the hard number for SSI or SSDI or both / either? I thought the monthly earning cap was different for each individual. Is that?
I think it is different. This was created a while ago, so don't trust me on what the existing income caps are for SSI, SSDI. What I do know are the income or the asset caps for able account contributions.
Another one.
So,
My sister has both an individual checking account and a joint account with my mom as her rep payee. Would it be beneficial for her to open the ABLE account?
it could, I think, you know, my statement to folks is if you have the resources to do it, there's no harm in opening the ABLE account, right? Because it allows you to save more or not. But if you're not receiving benefits, maybe you don't need to open the ABLE account. But if you do want some sort of vehicle that allows, if there's a family checking and a joint checking and they're trying to save some money away for your sister and have that money grow a little bit, if she's receiving benefits, you're going to want to make sure you structure that in some sort of account, whether that's an ABLE account or a special needs trust, to ensure that she doesn't lose access to those benefits.
So if a person, so say your parent has passed away and then so the person is receiving Social Security instead of supplemental security income. Do they also have a limit in how much they can save before the ABLE account? Do you know, Erik?
Ooh, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure either. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Well,
I see a hand raised.
yes, go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'm having a hard time typing in because I'm using my phone. Can you just repeat one more time? So you could save, you know, the $16,000 a year plus the 12,000 if they're working, but the total maximum in the account can never go over 100,000. Is that correct?
Correct. So that's just something you would have to
Not that that's going to happen for
No,
my situation, but
yeah, and that's a great point because these, like I mentioned in the beginning, these are not meant to be huge accounts. If you've got over $100,000 in assets, like you need to think about a different financial vehicle, like a special needs trust or something like that. These are meant to be used for either daily and or, you know, somewhat regularly planned expenses. So, you know, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that was a good.
yes,
All right, did I cover everyone's questions? If not, can you let me know if I missed something? All right, well, Erik, I think this has been a great informative evening, and I think that everybody learned a lot. And we will be sending out the slides along with Erik's contact information and the links for where you can go ahead and apply for your account. And I hope you guys all do either have one or get one and save with ABLE, right, Erik?
Yes, and tell your friends. I know people with the disability community talk to one another. You have one homework assignment if you enjoyed this presentation or if you hated it. Please tell your friends about these accounts. We are trying to help people save and not lose access to their benefits. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, we do really appreciate you, Erik. And somebody said we appreciate all your one-man show does and all of the advocacy that you do in the state of Nevada for individuals with developmental disabilities is fabulous. We love having you. We love hearing from you. So thanks for being here tonight. You have any final words?
No.
All right. Amazing. Thank you, Erik.